10 power 100, 100 power 100, 1000 power 1000, or I can write 10 power 10 power 10, 10 power 10 power 10 power 10, something. It might be anything. बट कोई ना कोई ऐसा टाइम पॉइंट आएगा ना जब n की वैल्यू इससे ग्रेटर देन हो जाएगी. लेट अस से इट इज नॉट 10 पावर 10, लेट अस अज्यूम इट इज k, बट k इज कांस्टेंट बट वेरी 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 लार्ज. अब मैं n की ऐसी वैल्यू चूज करूंगा विच इज ग्रेटर देन k, so it is n into k, it is n into n, so obviously n square is greater than n into k. Got it? So n square is always greater than n into k. Fine. So simply I want to explain this thing only कि जब polynomial higher होगा तो doesn't matter यहाँ पे constant multiplier कुछ भी ले लो, वो हमेशा dominate नहीं कर पाएगा. If somebody give you value of k, so you will ask what is k, he will say k is constant, then you will say okay give me the value of k. n की वैल्यू से थोड़ी सी हाइयर ले लो और वो डिससेटिस्फाई हो जाएगा. Okay, so I think there is no doubt. Everybody is comfortable till this point. Okay, fine. So let us see next thing. I have to come to this function. So what is function here? It is n cube. F of n is nothing but n cube. Let me to write it this function here, n cube, and this is my function g of n. So g of n is nothing but 10n square plus 100n. Fine. So n cube कैसे भी लिख सकते हैं ना, n cross n square. Fine. We can write like this one, n cross n square. And what may I write? I write here. It is nothing but 10 into n square plus 100n. Fine, that's it. So हम इसको ऐसे बोल सकते हैं ना, this thing is nothing but I can write like some constant k multiplied by n square. Why? Because this 10 is constant only, and 100n, that is also let us see, for the time being, let us assume for time being मैं 100n की जगह 100n square लिख देता हूँ. Let us assume 100n की जगह मैं 100n square लिख देता हूँ for the time being, but later I will revert this thing and I will explain the things. So 10n square plus 100n square, that thing is nothing but 110n square. But यहाँ पे क्या है, n into n square. So what do you think? 100 into n square, इसे किसी भी constant से multiply कर दो. Let us take, I am just going to multiply it with any constant k. So what do you think? क्या function g of n after multiplying with k क्या हमेशा f of n को dominate कर पाएगा? हमेशा dominate नहीं कर पाएगा. Why? I just gave you one example. Fine. It is, let us take already 110 of n square. So again n square is multiplied by some constant. K से और भी multiply कर दो. Let us take k is 1000. So ये कितना बन जाएगा? 110, 15, 0 लगा दो, n square. ये function बन चुका है. But still this figure is constant. But here n square के साथ क्या? N only. Exponential n cube. No. Exponential is 2 power n. एक्सपोनेंशियल जो होता है दैट इज 2 पावर n. सो इसे बोलते हैं क्यूबिक टाइम कॉम्प्लेक्सिटी. आई थिंक n को बोलते हैं लीनियर और n स्क्वायर को बोलते हैं क्वाड्रेटिक, और इसे बोलते हैं क्यूबिक टाइम कॉम्प्लेक्सिटी. फाइन. सो दिस इज द थिंग. सो व्हाट हैपेंस हियर? आर यू able to follow this thing? And now let us see one thing. So here I put 100n की जगह मैंने 100n स्क्वायर पुट कर दिया. तो श्योरली एक्चुअल फंक्शन जो होगा वो 110n स्क्वायर से छोटा होगा. राइट, मैंने उससे बड़ा फंक्शन लिया. स्टिल आई एम नॉट एबल टू सेटिस्फाई दिस कंडीशन. राइट, स्टिल आई एम नॉट एबल टू सेटिस्फाई दिस कंडीशन. राइट. ऑफ कोर्स आई एज्यूम दैट लेट अस टेक 100n की जगह मैंने 100n स्क्वायर लिख दिया. राइट. सो अगर मैं 100n की जगह 100n स्क्वायर लिख देता हूं, स्टिल आई एम नॉट एबल टू सेटिस्फाई दिस कंडीशन फॉर एवर. राइट. सो अगर 110n स्क्वायर प्लस 100n है तो वो तो सेटिस्फाई करेगा ही नहीं. गॉट इट? सो व्हाट डू यू थिंक? क्या लिख सकते हैं f of n इज ऑर्डर ऑफ g of n? Is it possible? Can I write f of n is order of g of n? No. So we cannot write f of n is order of g of n. Fine. Now listen one thing. I'm just going to tell you one shortcut. Just pay attention over highest polynomial. Okay, highest polynomial को क्या बोलते हैं? Degree? Yeah, I think it's a degree बोलते हैं. I don't know. There are yes. So some student confirmed it. Degree. So इस function की degree क्या है? 3 और इसकी degree क्या है? 2. So जिसकी degree सबसे बड़ी होगी वही function सबसे बड़ा होगा. Got it? So just pay attention on means maximum power, or we can say just pay attention over degree. So that function will be the greater function. That's it. Got it? So let us take one more example. I will take similar kind of thing. So one function f of n is given, that is nothing but n power 4. Second function g of n is given, that is, let us take 100n cube plus 20n square plus 300n plus 10 power 5. So what do you think? Pehla question, f of n is order of g of n. You have to find out true false. Second is f of n is g of n is order of f of n. So कौन सा true है कौन सा false है? क्या दोनों true है या दोनों false हैं? I just gave you shortcut, just follow that thing. Okay, so let us assume this is question A, this is question B. A is true, B is true. Kalyan, don't write A, so write either A true, A false. Okay, B is true. Let us see. If I'm talking about f of n, इसका polynomial कितना है? n power 4. और इसका polynomial, इसकी डिग्री क्या? 4, इसकी डिग्री क्या? 3. So obviously ये function हमेशा greater than होगा. And listen one more thing. If you're talking about time complexity, उसमें कभी भी negative function नहीं हो सकते. Means there is no function like minus of n power 3. Right? Because time complexity के context में negative time कैसे हो सकता है? Let us say somebody saying that I'm just going to travel by train and it is just going to take minus 30 minutes of time. That is never possible. So they are positive functions only. So obviously f of n क्या होगा? G of n से greater than होगा. So I can write down G of n is order of f of n. This is true and this is false. I cannot write like this one. Got it? So I explained by taking values and all these things. That is base of all these things, but you can directly spot what is happening here. Let us take one more question. F of n is given n square only and g of n is given 4n square plus 2n plus 10. Again, let us take first question, A part. F of n is order of g of n. Second part, g of n is order of f of n. Which is true, which is false? A correct, A correct. A true. And what about B? B के केस में सबको सांप सूंघ गया. Okay, think about it. If you solved for A is true, then don't be happy. कोई बड़ा तीर नहीं मार दिया. Fine. Okay, also true. Okay, so that means B is not order, that is false. B is false. Okay, in fact दोनों के दोनों true है. So this is true, this is also true. So I will not explain the things by taking, let us take, I'm writing g of n is lesser than or equal to c into f of n, then I'm taking few constant values of n and I'm just going to explain like this one. I will not take that thing, right? So let us see, I'm writing function f of n. F of n क्या है? N square only. I am not writing equal to, I am writing down to it. And function g of n कितना है? Let us take 4n square plus 2n plus 10. That's it. So b में क्या है? G of n is order of f of n. That means function f of n greater than होगा, right? Means function f of n जो है वो g of n को dominate करेगा. So let us see, this is 4n square. So I will put some value of n. Let me to repeat this thing. सबसे पहली term क्या है? 4n square and second term is nothing but 2n. So obviously 2n is lesser than 4n square and last term क्या? That is constant. So surely it is lesser than 4n square. And whenever I'm talking about n, then think it is a large value. So 4n square, it is greater than 2n, it is greater than 10n. But still I am writing, let us take it is 4n square plus 2n square plus 10n square. Let us assume. So total कितना बना ये? 10 plus 2, 12 plus 2, that is nothing but 16n square. So जो actual function होगा उसकी वैल्यू 16n square से lesser आएगी. Got it? So f of n में क्या लिख सकते हैं? I can write 17n square. So क्या होगा? क्या f of n हमेशा g of n से greater than होगा? What do you think? Yes. So can I write g of n is order of f of n? Yes or no? Yes, I can write. Okay, Prerna is saying that not getting. So let me to repeat this thing. So just for simplicity purpose, this is my function g of n. Now remember one thing. हमें करना क्या है? We have to check this thing कि f of n हमेशा g of n को dominate करेगा या नहीं करेगा. We have to check this thing. So it is 4n square, this is 2n. So obviously 2n will be lesser than 4n square, but फिर भी चलो 2n को round figure में 2n square रख दिया, right? And let us take 10 को round figure में 10n square रख दिया. So अगर इन सबको जोड़ेंगे तो कितना आएगा? 16n square. So function g of n कितना बन चुका है? It is 16n square, right? And this is my function f of n, that is nothing but n square only. And if I have to prove f of n is order of, sorry, g of n is order of f of n, तो f of n को किसी कांस्टेंट से मल्टीप्लाई करेंगे, राइट? और उस कांस्टेंट की वैल्यू क्या ले लो? 17. सो 17n स्क्वायर क्या होगा? 16n स्क्वायर से बड़ा होगा, और 16n स्क्वायर क्या? इससे बड़ा है. सो आई कैन से दैट f of n is greater than or equal to g of n, right? So you can think like this one, 17n square जो है that is greater than 16n square, और 16n square क्या? That is greater than 4n square plus 10n plus 10, sorry 2n plus 10. So obviously 17n square जो है that is greater than this thing. Got it? But अगर इसी फंक्शन में कहीं इसकी डिग्री 3 आ जाती, let us take it is n cube, तब पॉसिबल नहीं हो पाता, राइट? अगर n क्यूब होता तो बाकी सबको भूल जाओ, it is n into n square, that is n square only, doesn't matter what constant multiplier you are taking here. So इस केस में दोनों कंडीशन सेटिस्फाई होती है, f of n is order of g of n and g of n is order of f of n. Okay, I am repeating. I think Ekta got confusion in. Okay, one more doubt. Okay, let us see. Let us assume that I am saying that कि 4n square की जगह n cube होता तो क्या हो जाता? अगर 4n square की जगह n cube होता तो क्या होता? तो ये फंक्शन क्या होता है? n square ना, और ये फंक्शन क्या हो जाता है? n cube plus 2n plus 10. तो चलो बाकी सबको डिस्कार्ड कर दो, सिर्फ n क्यूब को रख लो. n क्यूब क्या है? n into n स्क्वायर ना, और यहाँ पे क्या है? n स्क्वायर ओनली. अब इसे किसी भी कांस्टेंट k से मल्टीप्लाई कर दो, ये फॉरएवर ग्रेटर देन नहीं रह सकता n into n स्क्वायर से. तो फिर उस केस में हम नहीं बोल सकते थे कि g of n is order of f of n. Got it? Okay, उस केस में f of n is g of n, then a true होता, b false. Of course. Okay, इससे पहले मैंने क्या, I think you have confusion in this one. Fine. So what happens? So I think you got how I got 16n square. This was my actual function. So 17n square is greater than 16n square, and 16n square is greater than 4n square plus 2n plus 10. Then obviously 16n square is greater than g of n. That's it. Of course. So n square is the 2 is the degree of both polynomials. So rest of things can be handled with the help of constant multipliers. Okay, so I'm going to repeat whole thing. Let us see. It is 4n square plus 2n plus 10. Then what happens? I'm just writing. Let us take 4n square as it is. 2n की जगह 2n square रख देते हैं. 10 की जगह 10n square लिख देते हैं. So totally it becomes 16n square. So surely 16n square is greater than this function. और f of n को किसी कांस्टेंट से मल्टीप्लाई करना है. So let us take 17. So it becomes 17n square. So 17n square is greater than 16n square, and 16n square is greater than g of n. So I can write f of n is greater than g of n. Got it? So just pay attention over highest polynomial. Okay, what is highest polynomial? So yeah, just comparison happen between highest polynomial. The smaller terms are they could handled by they can be handled by constant multipliers. Remember that. So any doubt till this point? Okay, fine. So let us move on to one more question. Okay, so forget about a few more questions. Yeah, I will take few more questions in big omega notation. Just इतनी बात याद रखना कि highest polynomial को ही consider करना. That's it. So smaller terms could be handled by with the help of constant multiplier. Okay, so let us take next one is big omega notation. So big omega पे बहुत ज़्यादा टाइम खर्च नहीं करूँगा. Means I will not take example of whatever I took in big O notation. So only difference क्या है? Big O में क्या था? Less than equal to ऐसा था f of n, और यहाँ पे g of n था. यहाँ पे greater than equal to बन जाएगा. This is the only difference. And remember one thing, c क्या था हमारे पास? Greater than 0. So c की value 1/2 ले सकते हो. You can take value of c as 1/2. You can take 1/10. You can take 1/100. कुछ भी ले सकते हो. But it should be positive value only. Fine. You cannot take 0 or negative. Okay, so I am going to repeat. f of n में क्या था? Condition थी less than equal to की. Sorry. Big O notation में क्या था? Less than equal to की condition थी. Big omega में क्या हो जाएगा? Greater than equal to की condition हो जाएगी. Fine. And one more story, जो c होता है constant multiplier, वो greater than 0 होता है. That means you can take c is equal to 1/2, you can take 1/10, you can take 1/100, कुछ भी ले सकते हो. But 0 या फिर negative नहीं हो सकता. Okay, so big omega notation, कोई दो function दे रखे हैं f of n and second function is g of n. I can write f of n is big omega of g of n. कब लिखेंगे? If and only if f of n is greater than or equal to c into g of n for all n greater than or equal to n naught. And again same thing, n naught is greater than or equal to 1 and c is greater than 0 and both are constant. That's it. This is the definition of big omega notation. Okay, copy it. Then I will take few examples and you have to find out f of n is big omega of g of n or not. Okay, so let us see. I think it is copied. So अगर हमारे पास function f of n, if f of n is order of g of n है, तो क्या होगा? I can write g of n is big omega of f of n. We can write this thing because ये क्या बोलता है कि f of n, sorry, g of n क्या f of n से बड़ा, और ये क्या बोल रहा है f of n g of n से छोटा, right? So you can write if f of n is order of g of n, then it implies g of n is omega of f of n. Yeah, you can think its property. So let me to repeat this thing. ये क्या बोलता है? G of n is greater than f of n ना, और ये क्या बोलता है? f of n is lesser than g of n. So बात तो वही हुई. Fine. यहाँ पे g of n को बड़ा बताया f of n से, यहाँ पे f of n को छोटा बताया g of n से. That's it. Got it? So now let us take one example, and I will not take like f of n and g of n are given, then I'm just going to multiply f of n by some constant and I'm finding some value of n naught. I'm not going to repeat all those things, right? So let us take one example. Okay, so function f of n is given, it is nothing but 3n square plus 2n plus 5, and second function g of n is given, let us take 3n cube plus 2n plus 50. So check करना जरा f of n, this is question A, f of n is omega of g of n, and second one g of n is big omega of f of n. कौन सा ट्रू है कौन सा फॉल्स? Okay, so B is true, A is false. Oh, I got a large number of answers. Okay, so fine. So इन दोनों function में से कौन सा function बड़ा है? So g of n ये function बड़ा है. Alright. So if I'm writing f of n is omega of g of n, so this statement is false. Why? Because it is saying that g of n f of n से छोटा है. ऐसा नहीं है. But I think this statement is true. Am I right? Yeah, that's it. So A is false, B is true, A false, second is true. Yeah, I think everybody got this thing. So that's it. So write down one more question. Let us take function f of n is given. It is nothing but n into log of n plus n plus 10. Second function g of n is given n root n plus 10n. अगेन फाइंड आउट इनके बीच में क्या रिलेशन बनता है, बिग ओ स्मॉल ओ बिग ओ बिग ओ बिग ओमेगा, क्या रिलेशनशिप बनता है? जी ऑफ एन इज ग्रेटर, या ऑब्वियसली Okay, so g of n is omega of f of n. So g of n is omega of f of n. F of n is greater. Okay, f of n is greater. G of n is fn. F of n is greater. Okay, so let us see. It is nothing but 10n. This is n. This is 10. ये smaller terms हैं, सबको छोड़ सकते हैं. Mainly comparison किसके बीच में होगा? n log n और दूसरा क्या होगा? n into root of n. n into root of n कैसे भी लिख सकते हैं ना? n power 1.5. राइट. सो बेसिकली यहाँ पे क्या है, n तो दोनों में सेम है, बचेगा क्या? यहाँ पे log n है और यहाँ पे n पावर 1/2 है. so इन दोनों में से ग्रेटर कौन है? log n इज ग्रेटर और n पावर 1/2 इज ग्रेटर. log n is greater or n power 2 is greater. You can check this thing just by taking one example. Let us put n is equal to 2 power 1000. So 2 power 1000 लिखेंगे तो log of n क्या देगा? 1000 देगा. और n power 1/2 क्या देगा? 2 power 500. And I think 2 power 500 is very very large than 1000. Got it? So obviously this thing is greater, that means this thing is greater, that means this thing is greater. So finally f of n is greater than, sorry, g of n is greater than f of n. So you can write f of n is the order of g of n, or you can write g of n is big omega of f of n. That's it. You can write like this. Okay, so I'm going to repeat this thing. So let us see. In this function terms क्या है? n log n plus n plus 10. So यहाँ पे n log n, this is the dominating term. So smaller term को discard कर सकते हैं. I hope you know very well कि किसी को constant से multiply कर सकते हैं. So f of n की dominating term क्या मिलेगी हमें? n into log of n. फाइन. और इस फंक्शन की डोमिनेटिंग टर्म क्या है? n रूट n को लिख सकते हैं n पावर 1.5 बिकॉज इट इज n इंटू n पावर 1/2. सो दोनों का मल्टीप्लिकेशन करेंगे तो क्या होगा? पावर ऐड हो जाएगी. सो इट बिकम n पावर 3/2. राइट. सो इट इज नथिंग बट 1.5. सो लेट अस सी फर्दर. आई कैन राइट यहाँ पे n और n, ये टर्म तो सेम है. सो n पावर 1/2 और यहाँ पे क्या? log n. इसका डिफरेंस है. So let me to repeat this thing. n power 1 और n power 1 ये टर्म दोनों में सेम है. So this is not going to create any difference. So difference किसका होगा? रूट n का और log n का. Fine. So रूट n और log n इन दोनों में बड़ा कौन सा है? रूट n is greater than log n. You can check this thing by taking few examples. So let us put n is equal to 10 power. Let us put n is equal to 2 power 1000. So root n कितना आएगा? 2 power 500. और ये कितना आएगा? log of 2 power 1000 is nothing but 1000 only. Fine. And if you are putting n is equal to, let us take 2 power 2000, so it become 2 power 1000. और ये कितना होगा? 2000 only. Because if I take log of n, so it is nothing but log of 2 power 2000 and base 2. So log की property 2000 multiplication में आएगा. So it is 2000 into log of 2 base 2, that is nothing but 1. Got it? So this is the simple thing. So I can say that n power 1/2 is greater than log of n. That means n into n power 1/2 is greater than n into log of n. So finally I can say that g of n, this function is greater than f of n. Got it? So Sonam, is it clear to you? Fine. So finally I can write f of n is the order of g of n, means g of n is greater than f of n, or I can write g of n is omega of f of n. That means I can write f of n is smaller than g of n, or equal to भी हो सकता है. Okay, so everybody is comfortable till this point. Okay, good. So now let us move on to next thing, that is known as theta notation. Theta is denoted by just the theta only. So I can write f of n is theta of g of n. ये कब possible है? Whenever f of n is order of g of n and f of n is omega of g of n. So f of n is order of g of n and f of n is omega of g of n. अगर दोनों condition satisfy होती है, then I can write f of n is theta of g of n. Fine. So big O notation में क्या था? F of n is order of g of n. That means g of n is greater than or equal to f of n. Omega में क्या था? Less than equal to. And theta notation में क्या? It is just equal to only. So f of n is should be order of g of n as well as f of n should be omega of g of n. Further इसे ऐसे भी लिख सकते हो. F of n is order of g of n and g of n is order of f of n. ऐसे भी लिख सकते हो कि दोनों एक दूसरे के ऑर्डर में होंगे. और you can write down f of n is omega of g of n and g of n is omega of f of n. फाइन, ऐसे भी लिख सकते हो. ये पहली डेफिनेशन. दूसरी, और you can write an f of n is omega of g of n and f of n is order of, sorry, you can write g of n is omega of f of n. You can write any of that. Means for some values f of n is greater and for some values it's less than g of n. F of n is less than and greater than. It is not like this one. So whatever you are thinking, that is not a correct way to understand this function. So you have to understand this function by these definitions only. So what is saying that f of n है that is lesser than or equal to some constant into g of n, and further f of n is lesser than or equal to some constant multiplier into g of n. Okay, sorry, I forget to mention one thing. So here you have to take n naught and there are two constants c1 and c2. c1 for this thing and c2 for this thing. Sorry, I forget to mention that thing. So f of n is theta of g of n and you have to take condition n is greater than or equal to n naught and there are two more constants c1 and c2. So यहाँ पे c1 multiply होगा g of n से और यहाँ पे c2 multiply होगा g of n से. But what you have to prove? F of n is lesser than or equal to c1 into g of n and f of n is greater than or equal to c2 into g of n. Got it? So don't think like that. Sometime it is greater, sometime it is lesser. So understand it in terms of these two functions. F of n is order of g of n. कब होता है? I think you have to take some constant multiplier and you have to prove f of n is omega of g of n. Again you have to take some constant multiplier and you have to multiply it by g of n. C1 and C2 is greater than 0 now, of course. Same story as C. C भी क्या था? That is greater than 0 and here C1, C2 they are also greater than 0. Okay, so I think Sakshi and Nina had doubt. Is it clear for both of you? Okay. So Jyoti is saying that means both conditions need to be true, like of course f of n will greater than for some constant value and f of n will be greater than for some constant value. Okay, so Jyoti, you made some typing mistake. F of n will be greater than some constant value and f of n will be lesser than some constant value. Okay, so I'm just going to take one example. Okay, so let us take function f of n is nothing but n square plus 10 only, and function g of n is nothing but 2n square plus 3n. That's it. Got it? So what you have to do, I have to prove f of n is theta of n, and further I think theta is reflexive. So you can write down f of n, or you can write down f of n is theta of n, or you can write down theta of n is f of n. Sorry, not reflexive, symmetric. It is symmetric as well as reflexive. Later I will talk about the properties. So I have to prove f of n is theta of g of n. So अगर f of n theta of g of n होगा, then I have to prove two things. पहली चीज क्या होगी, f of n should order of g of n. This is first thing. And second thing क्या होगी, you can write down g of n is order of f of n. That's it. और इसकी जगह ऐसे भी लिख सकते हो, sorry, yeah, that's fine. और इसकी जगह ऐसे भी लिख सकते हो, you can write down f of n is big omega of g of n. You can write this thing also. So whatever you are convenient with, you can take that one only. So f of n is order of g of n and g of n is order of f of n. So ये कब ट्री होगा? So जब f of n की वैल्यू क्या होगी, lesser than equal to c1 into g of n. और ये कब ट्री होगा, g of n is lesser than or equal to some constant multiplier c2 into f of n. Fine. So what can you take? So let us take here, I'm just going to take c1 is equal to, and I'm just going to take c2 is equal to, guess करना जरा c1 और c2 की क्या वैल्यू ले, so that ये कंडीशन सेटिस्फाई हो जाए. Okay, I can take it, just guess only, but I'm giving you the chance. Okay, so let us take c1 is equal to 3. Is it a good idea? Okay. Nina is saying 1 for c2. One for c1. No. अगर c1 की वैल्यू 1 लोगे तो yeah, you are right. What we have to prove, f of n is order of g of n. That means, yeah, of course you can take here 1 also. That's right. Yeah, 4 is also right, 3 is also right, 1 is also right. 10 किसके लिए, c1 या c2 के लिए? c1 के लिए. मीन c1 ग्रेटर देन 3, एनी वैल्यू, हाउ 1? ऑफ कोर्स 1 से भी सेटिस्फाई हो जाएगा, डोंट वरी अबाउट इट. 2 से भी सेटिस्फाई हो जाएगा. ओके, सो ट्राई करना जरा. आई एम गिविंग यू द चांस एंड लेटर आई विल सॉल्व इट. Okay, so c1 when n is equal to 3 and c is equal to 1, then condition will suffice. And एक से नहीं हो रहा satisfy या मुझे आता नहीं, आप okay, fine. Okay, so let us see. I'm going to explain this thing. So let us take function f of n. क्या है? It is n square plus 10. It should lesser than or equal to c into g of n. It is twice of n square plus 3 into n. So I think अगर मैं इसे किसी से भी multiply ना करूं, means multiplied by 1, still this is greater than. So you can put value of n. Let us take 1, 2, 3. अगर 1 put करेंगे तो 1 square plus 10, that is 11, and 1 square plus 2, that 2 plus 3, that is nothing but 5. 2 put करेंगे तो 2 का स्क्वायर कितना था, 4 plus 10, 14, और यहाँ पे 2 का स्क्वायर कितना होगा, 4 into 2, 8 plus 6, ये भी 14 आ गया. Right, 3 के 3 put करेंगे, then it is 9 plus 10, 19. Okay, so what happens here? It is nothing but 3 square, that is 9 into 2 18 plus 9, that is 27. So you can see कि C1 into G of n F of n को dominate कर रहा है, and you can verify just by putting few more large values, so it will always satisfy. And here what should I take value of C2? Give some rough idea. C2 की वैल्यू क्या लें? What value of C2 should I take? 3, 2. Okay, so function g of n क्या है? That is nothing but twice of n square plus 3n, and that function is nothing but n square plus 10. So now let us see, अगर C2 की वैल्यू 2 ले ली तो यहाँ पे डिग्री क्या है? 2, और n स्क्वायर के साथ मल्टीप्लाई कौन कर रहा है? 2, और यहाँ पे n स्क्वायर के साथ मल्टीप्लाई करे कौन करेगा? 2. सो कंडीशन सेटिस्फाई नहीं होगी. So you can put here 3. So 3 put करने के बाद क्या होगा? This term is multiplied by 3. So I'm just going to take few values of n like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Till this point it is visible. So what happens? It will become 1 square, that 2 plus 3, that is nothing but a 5. This thing will become how much? That is 2, 1 square 2, 2 plus 10. Sorry, it will become 33. Let us take 2. 2 का स्क्वायर कितना होता है? 4 into 2 8, 8 plus 6 14, और ये कितना आ जाएगा? 2 का स्क्वायर, that is nothing but 4. 4 and 10 14 into 3, it become 42. और जब 3 पुट करेंगे then 2 into 3 square, that is 9, 18 plus 9 27, and this thing will become 2 square 9 into 10 19, and it is become 57. Okay, and so you can check it further. So yeah, 42 57, yeah, of course. So you can check further. So this condition is always satisfied. So f of n, I can write f of n is order of g of n, and g of n is order of f of n. Both are true. This is true and this is also true. So I can write f of n is theta of g of n, right? And I hope you know what is the shortcut for theta notation. Theta notation के लिए shortcut क्या होगा? Let us see, two functions are given. By just looking at functions, how can you say that both function I can write f of n is theta of g of n? Nina is saying that we will write C1 is equal to 3 and N naught is equal to 1. Of course, N naught is equal to 1. C2 is equal to 3. Of course, Kalyani, you are right. So Nina, her doubt was C1 equal to 3 and N naught equal to, no, C1 equal to 1. Okay. So C1 की वैल्यू अगर 3 लेंगे तब क्या होगा? I didn't check, I just checked by C1 is equal to 1. इसी से मैंने चेक किया है. Fine. अगर आप C1 की वैल्यू 3 ले लोगे then might be it is satisfying from 1 and onwards. So of course Kalyani, you are right. अगर दोनों की डिग्री सेम होगी, let us take function f and g both are same degree, then I can write f is theta of g. That's it. I can say this statement. I am taking about second case, C1 equal to 3 and N naught equal to 1. Second case means f of n, sorry, g of n is order of f of n. If you are saying second case, then write C2, na? C2 is equal to 3. Why you are writing C1 equal to 3? Yeah, of course, so you can write down C2 equal to 3 and N naught is equal to 1, of course. So C2 is 3 and N naught is 1. Because it is satisfying this condition from for value of n is equal to 1 and onwards. That's it. Okay. Anybody else have doubt? Okay. So let us see इन तीनों functions के कुछ diagrams बनते हैं. So I am leaving this thing for you. Just open google.com and just write down asymptotic notation. And in the Google images you will find out a diagram of these functions, that is something like this one, and एक line ऐसे जाएगी, एक line ऐसे जाएगी, then something like this one, they are saying this is n naught, this function is f of n, this function is c into g of n, kind of thing. Right, so I'm leaving this thing for you. Okay, and I shared a lot of questions in the doc about of subject COA. Please solve all of them so that we can discuss those questions on some day, and one remaining concept of COA, that is multi-level cache. Right, so solve all those questions so that we can discuss them on some day. Okay, so now come to next one, that is small o notation. So small o is denoted by small o only. So what happens? Let us take function f is given, f of n is given, and g of n is given. So f of n क्या? Let us take n square. G of n क्या? Let us take n square, n cube, n power 4, n power 5, कुछ भी हो सकता है. So what I say, no, new questions are not uploaded, old questions only. So what I will say, all are upper bound. All are upper bound. Is it so? Function n square के लिए क्या ये सब upper bounds हैं? Yes, all are upper bounds. Fine. And if I'm talking about n square, then it is a tight upper bound. And n cube is nothing but non-tight upper bound. N4 is also non-tight upper bound. N5 is also non-tight upper bound. I hope you know the difference between tight and untight, tight and non-tight. So tight means कि अगर n की पावर थोड़ी सी कम कर दी तो ये फंक्शन फिर अपर बाउंड नहीं रहेगा. यहाँ पे अगर n की पावर को थोड़ा सा घटा दूं, let us take if I am putting 2.99, still it is satisfied. So these are the non-tight upper bound, but it is tight upper bound. Fine. So इन सारे के सारे केसेस में क्या लिख सकता हूं? In all these cases I can write f of n is order of g of n. I can write like this thing. But for non-tight upper bound, I can write f of n is small o of g of n. Right? So big O notation के लिए क्या होता था? If I am writing f of n is order of g of n, तो g of n की डिग्री f of n की डिग्री से greater than or equal to होनी चाहिए थी. But if I am talking about small o notation and I am writing f of n is small o of g of n, तो g of n की डिग्री f of n की डिग्री से strictly greater than होनी चाहिए. अगर f of n की डिग्री है 2 तो g of n की डिग्री 2.1 हो सकती है. Oops, what happened? Why?